My name's Andy Thompson and I'm talking to you about tips for choosing the right school or college for sixth form. My thanks very much go out to Catherine Stoker today for inviting me to address you on sixth form options. It's that time of a pupil's career when GCSE is giving way to A-level, the demands of one public examination to those of another. So with thoughts of examination in mind, the old advice to candidates to understand the terms of the question had me wanting to acknowledge the significant words in the title. I'm drawn to the word tips because what I've been asked to speak on is clearly an inexact science and a very personal matter from an advisor's point of view, and I'm sure very much so from a family point of view. So I hope in the next 15 minutes or so to offer some insight and maybe be the beneficiary of further thoughts from the audience. There is quite a range of options for sixth form, and when I look down the list of institutions exhibiting here today, I'm once again struck by the quality and variety of what exists in our part of the country. Institutions of all shapes and sizes. But no matter what the reputation of any institution, the question always has to be, is it right for our family? Is it the right place to conclude school-age education for our daughter, for our son? Before I joined Carfax Tutorial Establishment, I was principal of an independent sixth form college in Oxford for 12 years, having begun my career there as a tutor almost 30 years ago. I've often reflected that when I chose as a young graduate to return so quickly to work in sixth form education, I was perhaps suffering from early onset nostalgia. But as a teenager, sixth form had meant so much to me, a portal to dreams, a window onto so much else. And when you come to work in a tutorial establishment, you quickly encounter something very special. For both tutorial staff and pupils, there is a shared recognition of the significance of the moment of arrival at A-level, the end of compulsory schooling and the beginning of the journey out of school years and into higher education, into adulthood. And it is as GCSE level education draws to a close that the time of re-evaluation begins and more families consider a new approach, entry to another school or sixth form college. Most pupils will do nothing other than choose to stay at school for sixth form, and for many straightforward reasons, and I think very often the right reasons. Most senior schools have a sixth form, and progression is a natural thing and eagerly awaited. The advantages are numerous. Progression in a known environment means that there are fewer potential issues of adjustment. And for some pupils, the only variable changing will be level of study, with even teachers remaining the same. There is also the sense of arrival at the peak of schooling and the long-awaited prestige of sixth form. The seniority of sixth form can be emphasised in many little ways. Variations to school uniform allowed, for example. Most importantly, smaller class sizes and a more collaborative style of teaching with a greater accent on class discussion, stimulating the generation of unique insights and approaches. And I think these are very much things that parents, that pupils should be looking for this final level of school education before departure, in so many cases, to university. I hope everybody will indulge me on a brief aside now. I also want to raise a hand for that errant privilege of sixth form and the source of much disagreement between staff and pupils. We may insist that there are no free periods, that these are sacred moments set aside for private study, but I defy any senior academic manager to tell me that they have not smiled inwardly at the memory of the joyfulness and liberation of private study as free period. I was at a memorial service for a greatly esteemed colleague a few years ago, and a chum from his sixth form recalled him donning a sombrero and venturing out into the local town in the middle of the school day. I should add that he was not a pupil at a school in Mexico. The whole free period private study dichotomy is a merry war. We police the bounds of freedom, but we know that freedom exists and is coming, a lifetime of choosing. Of course, the two most important elements that confirm why pupils should choose to stay at school for sixth form, that make school right, are the quality of teaching and the camaraderie that exists within a long-standing cohort. I think pupils look forward to working with teachers at sixth form for two reasons. Sometimes the teacher of a favourite A-level subject will be someone who has taught the pupils through GCSE, and this continuity, the opportunity to take knowledge further, led by a tried and trusted guide, is the key factor. Conversely, sometimes it can be all about anticipated change at school. A new teacher, maybe of a new subject, one that's not available in the school's curriculum at GCSE. The attraction of the reputation of a specialist at A-level, the sense of academic promotion to this heroic being, is sometimes the key to sixth form success. Camaraderie in a school where a pupil has been there for a long time, camaraderie, of course, plays its part. It's often very important for the self-esteem of young people to be around friends with whom they're not only learning, but with whom they are maturing socially. This, for parents, is a factor not to be taken lightly. Parents should remember this when they're looking for change because they believe it will result in academic improvement. The head often engages best when the heart is happy. And it's this dilemma that will lead me to look at that word right again shortly. Remember, the title of the talk is Tips for Choosing the Right School or College for Sixth Form. So, in what circumstances do families come to consider a change of environment for sixth form? At times, it's an absolute necessity. Some senior schools don't have sixth forms, so often there's a long-established connection between two schools and an agreed progression with which local families are very happy. Sometimes there has developed a kind of symbiosis where pupils tend to transfer from a school that is deemed to have greater strength with younger pupils to one where what is on offer at sixth form is more attractive. This can be down to the quality of sixth form teaching, the range of subjects on offer, or a particular strength in an area of academia, be it science and technology, the arts, or some other. For some also, there is the consideration of movement out from a single-sex environment to co-education as a prelude to co-education at university and that ultimate exercise in co-education, adult life. But change in all of these circumstances arises from an external prompt and often involves no great consideration of choice, more an agreed collective movement with families following a trail that others have blazed. Of course, it is still important for parents and children to recognise that what is right for one individual is not necessarily right for another. There is no safety in numbers, merely illusion. The difficulty arises when parents and their children find themselves making a very individual decision to change school for sixth form. And the two impulses for change that are invariably of most concern are pupil unhappiness and parental unhappiness. Pupil unhappiness can occasionally be because a young person has begun to feel that they are not making the best progress academically. But I have found that a pupil is much more likely to be desirous of change due to personal unhappiness at school. And this can be very problematic for parents who may feel that the environment they've chosen for their child is a first-class one, where their child should have every opportunity to thrive academically, as friends do. Where a pupil has been unhappy at school, while a parent's heart may go out, they might still feel that there are reasons why a pupil should stay at school. And this has been one of the areas in which Catherine Stoker and I have worked together over the years. In institutions that offer the flexibility of individual tuition, there is always scope to understand and look at a pathway for each individual. And the determination sometimes is to figure out whether a larger school has run its course or not. It could go one way, it could go the other way. In seeking entrance to either another school or a sixth form college, that huge range of options out there, I think the most important advice I can offer is threefold. Plan in advance, identify a target, and start with the reality, the rightness of your child. When planning in advance, parents need to look carefully at the academic progress their child is making through GCSE and the appropriateness of the institution they choose to approach. Are the grades being asked for by a sixth form institution to which you wish to apply achievable? Never forget there are two elements to entry requirements. Meeting them allows entry to a sixth form, but the manner of meeting entry requirements is the best indication of whether or not your child can stay the course. While schools or colleges may set a minimum entry for sixth form of say 5 or 6 GCSE grade Bs, they do tend to expect entrants to get higher grades. And if your child has only just achieved grades for entry, the child may be destined to struggle, and this might well result in a further costly change during sixth form. So the accent is on realism. Identify a target. I think when it comes to A-level, it's such a short period and it's all about moving on to something else, to university. So there is always the consideration of the type of qualification which will best suit your child. And I have found that this is really the primary concern of parents. I would say that while A-level remains far and away the most popular form of qualification studied for at sixth form, the IB has grown steadily, and its influence, both in terms of academic standard, much discussed in the papers at the moment, and diversity of study, has influenced changes to A-level depth and breadth. The idea of the English Baccalaureate, the use by schools at A-level of the extended project, and the rise of the pre-U. It's all about finding the right qualification. There's a lot on offer. That's the target. But the biggest thing of all, and where I want to make my closing comments today, the rightness of your child. Talk to your child and try to get them to articulate what they want. You can then seek advice on the right sixth form programme. Catherine asked me to speak on this topic today because in the tutorial environment we encounter people considering change all the time, and it is often late in GCSE that families first decide to visit. The general perception from these first-time visitors is that the tutorial environment is likely to suit older pupils who will embrace an ethos where the focus is strongly academic, but one which encourages pupils to take greater responsibility for themselves in an environment that feels more like university and less like school. Our work with sixth formers at Carfax Tutorial Establishment is particularly special because our main method of teaching is through individual tuition. And this approach has meant that at Carfax we've always been able to offer an immense range of choice to pupils moving into sixth form. No subject clashes, the trialling of subjects into the first week of term before pupils settle on their final choice, and a pacing of study that recognises the difference between those who can fly at the beginning of the new journey and those who need to move at a steadier pace.